The countdown.
Okay. All right, we good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so thank you guys for having me here again this month. So today I'm doing it a little bit differently. So if people are watching live, I guess you can put questions and comments. Somebody's monitoring that? Okay. So we're doing Real Estate Hot Topics Mastermind. So I've got a list of a few things that I've seen over recent months that have come up. They've caused closing delays, they've caused headaches, they've caused lawsuits, they've you name it, they've caused it. And I feel like lately we're seeing some things that we've not seen so much before, but are becoming more common. So I have a few on my list here that I was going to start with, but I want this to be more informal, so if you have something to bring to the table, a question, something that you've experienced recently that you want to talk through, that's what it's all about. So, all right, so the one I've got, number one, this one was pretty recent in our office, conservatorships. Have you all had any dealings with a conservatorship situation? Okay.
I don't think so.
So in this one, and my voice is kind of in and out, so bear with me. So conservatorship, if you don't know what that is, the brief definition is basically if the property owner is deemed incompetent, they can no longer handle their affairs, and so they can't sign any closing documents, and they do not already have a power of attorney set up.
Okay.
Well, something has to happen. Somebody has to do something in order for the continued conveyance of the property. So at that point, there's usually a family member or close friend, or maybe even an attorney, somebody like that will petition the court to be the conservator over this person. And basically,
How long is that process?
well,
Depends.
it depends. It's always the attorney answer, right? It depends. I hate having my back to you. I'm sorry, I feel rude. So in this particular situation, well, let me back up. It depends because they have to petition the court. Certain factors have to already be in play. They will go to court, hear all the evidence, and then the judge will decide, okay, yes, you met all the requirements to be the conservator over this person or not, or they may say yes, but with these stipulations.
I see.
So it can in a variety of different ways.
Or if someone like contests that they don't like that person to do that or whatever, they should
Yes.
have power. Yeah.
So that can be a process. And if you're listing a property where there's that situation and you're dealing with somebody who is not the actual person in title, you got to figure out why. Generally, it's because they're the heir or the devotee to an estate or a will, or they may be a conservator, or they may be a power of attorney, but they also may be a conservator. So in this particular situation, it was 3 days before the closing date, and the listing agent called us and said, the seller is incompetent to sign, and she's gonna have a conservator. So that's a big pause, stop,
Yeah.
all the things. What we then have to do is get that entire court file, review it, and our underwriters have to review it as well. And what happened here was they had not even gone to court yet. So I believe that was on a Wednesday. They were gonna go to court at 1 o'clock and they wanted to close at 3 o'clock on Friday. That's not realistic, because if your 1 o'clock time at court is just when they get started. Like,
100%.
you don't know where you are on the docket. Also, we're not rushing through reviewing something like that because there are a lot of pitfalls. There are a lot of ways that can be contested. So we need ample time to get that whole file reviewed. And if the judge even signs an order that day too, may or may not happen. So if you find yourself in that situation, that's something to be very leery of, questioning the people that you're dealing with, telling them, okay, do you already have like an order signed by the judge?
100%.
Can we get that file? Like, you know, you can call the courthouse and get it yourself too. But being very vigilant in that. So they did end up going to court. It was somehow got all taken care of that day. But we none of us, the buyers included, buyer's agent, buyers, us, nobody knew about it until 3 days before closing.
Did he sign the listing agreement in the first place, and then she found out later in the transaction that he was incompetent, or did someone else sign it and say they were conservative? The conservatorship.
The story goes that the seller did sign the contract, and she signed it via dot loop, and we were never told that she was not competent or able to sign anything.
Did she have a stroke or did something happen in the meantime?
So that's why this is all a big mess.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what had happened, at what point she had been deemed incompetent, but they did appoint a conservator. Everything, the file was good, clean. We were able to move forward with it. However, now the buyers are suing the listing agent
I was
and
gonna
the
ask that.
sellers. So
The listing
not just
agent
because
knew
of
that.
Like from
Yeah.
the representative.
There were some other things as well, repairs that were not done properly, some other things not disclosed, different things like that as well, that we delayed closing.
So what are they suing them on the basis of?
Well, mainly the repairs situation, which I don't know all the details of that. And then the misrepresentation in the transaction, the delay of closing, because also there was, they were going to extend the closing date, but the contract was almost dead. So you can't extend a dead contract or amend, or once it's dead, it's dead.
Yeah.
So we were 2 hours away from that happening. There was something else too, and I can't remember now, but the conservators did sign, but she also signed a lot of documents prior to, one of those being the repair amendment, and the repairs were never done. So now the question is, did she even understand what she was signing? Was she competent to sign? Did somebody sign it for her? We don't know, but it was several thousands of dollars of some sort of roof repair, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the second conservatorship I've seen probably in the last 6 months come through.
Isn't it though, if the buyers sign at closing, then they're accepting the property unless there's another written agreement before they close?
So I don't know. I didn't see all the documentation to whatever, as far as like the repair issues go. But I think their argument is that they weren't done with the way they were supposed to be done. Which I guess my question is, if something to do with a roof, and they had a roofer come out after closing, and he was like, "This has not been repaired. This is not a repair. They've basically done nothing to this," but they provided what appeared to be a false receipt or an old receipt or something stating that those were the repairs that were done.
Oh no.
They weren't. So lots of
That
things
sucks for
involved
that agent
there.
too.
Yeah,
Get a new job.
Yeah, dude.
yeah. So if you've got repairs going on and invoices provided, I mean, double check.
Shoo-wee.
Yeah, but if she was competent to sign some of those things, I don't know, because that amendment was done, well after the actual contract was signed. So anyway, that was kind of a doozy. And so then I get the phone call after closing, "Hey, can you represent my buyers in this?" Which I can't, because I'm just in-house counsel. I don't do, outside of foundation title. But anyway, wow,
Dang.
any questions? Fun times and title.
So how are they deemed incompetent? Like, is there a doctor that has to do that?
Mhm.
Yes,
Essentially?
uh-huh. Yeah, it's generally you have, a doctor that will, provide a formal letter stating that they are incompetent to handle their affairs.
Dang.
Yeah. It's wild stuff out there.
If someone was granted that position and then someone came in and was gonna fight on that behalf, would that cause a problem? Or would, does that make sense? Like if someone's granted in court and then their sister comes in, she's like, I should have been remembered that.
Well, at this point, the judge will sign the order,
Okay,
so she can then start a different suit to
I see.
contest that.
okay.
But that would not,
Pertaining to that particular transaction, it wouldn't matter.
right, that's not gonna void, this one because it's already been, that was a done deal.
God dang.
That's, order has been signed, it's done. Yeah. Messy. Okay, any questions, any other questions?
I don't think so.
So to prevent that from happening, if you have a feeling that a seller or someone that you're working with is not competent, because I had something that was probably close to that, where the son, the mother was living with the son, and she was elderly and they took care of her, and they wanted to sell her house, but her grandson was living in the house rent free. So it became a whole and I think I've talked to you about this before too, and it was like close to the part where like, okay, well, is she, and every time I met with her and talked with her, she knew who I was, she was confident enough if I would go through the documents with her and let her know and ask her again, are you sure you'd like to sell your house, blah, blah, and she said yes. So I think it was very close to that point of like, she probably, like, to be on the safe side, if the grandson not coming back and being like, hey, you know, don't take away my house, blah, 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 like, you know, so if you're close to that or have something, you would get a doctor's note saying whether or not she's competent enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to keep inquiring, keep asking questions. And, you know, obviously the doctor can't speak to you directly, so, but you can usually ask enough questions to
Yeah.
get
Gauge.
to, a point where you can gauge whether you feel comfortable moving forward as is, or do you need to kind of pause and maybe speak with an attorney or other relatives. Google is very helpful.
Yeah.
Finding out more information, Facebook. But keep asking the questions.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. All right, so another we see a lot of right now, tax sales. And we're gonna continue to see a lot of those too. So you have two. Did you say you have two?
No, I think we will as well.
So for tax sales, the general rule of thumb is we can't issue title insurance policy for buyer or lender if the tax sale has been within 10 years. However, one of our underwriters works with a company called Tax Title Services. So if you are on a list of property and that person has bought it from a tax sale, if it's been within a year, they're still in the 1 year right of redemption, so the actual taxpayer has a year to come back and basically pay up and they can redeem their property. So at that point, it's not even worth it. But outside of a year, there are two options, at least if they're working with us, Tax Title Services. And that company, basically the seller pays them directly. They go through all of the entire court file, which is lengthy because there's a lot of people served, making sure everybody was properly served. I mean, they just do a very, very thorough review of that, which is why you generally don't want to issue title insurance, because there's just too much liability. But Tax Title Services will do that. The seller pays, it's usually around a couple $1,000, and they will clear it. They will issue a certificate saying everything looks good to us. If anything were to come back on it down the road, basically they indemnify my underwriter.
Mhm.
So the seller works directly with them, pays them directly, then we provide them our title commitment. So for them to review everything, and then they will give us the certification, and then we can move forward with closing.
How long does that process take?
Depends.
Yeah.
And sometimes, they can turn it around in a week, sometimes it's a couple of weeks or so. It really just depends on the situation. So then once they've done that, we can move on pretty quickly to closing. The other option too is if you're working with somebody that you want to list their property that's been in a tax sale, my underwriter will sometimes go ahead and insure without requiring tax title services, even if it's been within 10 years. So that's an underwriter call, period. So if you're working with somebody like that, send it to me. If you've got a copy of the clerk and master's deed, great. If not, send me the property address and their name. I can pull it and I can send it to my underwriter and say, hey, what are you thinking about this one? Can we insure, or do they need to do tax title services? So I have some investors that will call me that say, I bought this, property, what can you do? Because a lot of them know they want to go ahead and get tax title stuff taken care of before listing it. That way it doesn't delay closing. Doing it after listing it, you're not looking probably at a 30-day close. Yeah. So if you have something like that, just reach out to me and I can get with my underwriter, and they're usually pretty quick to get an answer to me. So, but yeah, we've got several of those going right now.
Not a lot of title companies can do that. They just won't touch it if it's within 20 years. They just won't. They'll say, sorry, can't close it unless they want no title insurance. No, because any other options? No. And then whenever I've mentioned, we need to do other stuff like other title companies can, like no, they can't. They can, tax title service. Like I've never heard that. I've been in title for like 53 years. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, it exists. I've done it that way. You can also expedite the process, but whoever purchased the tax sale, you can pay more. So it's like, it was cheaper, but it was like, we'll get to it. It'll be 30 days to get back to you. It's like, wow. Or you can pay like more than double, and it's like, we'll have it turned around in like 2 weeks or something. So it was pretty quick.
That's why I say if you're going to a list appointment and it's come from a tax sale, to go ahead and have that conversation with the seller so that they can get that figured out right away, and then there's no delays closing. So, okie dokie. All right, so the other one I've been seeing is vacant land fraud. Have you all had this situation come through? It's now in this area, and basically, if you're working with somebody who they want you to sell their vacant land, and it's generally unencumbered, meaning there's no mortgage on it, and you only hear from them on phone or email, and they want a quick close, and they want to use their own notary. Those are some red flags that it's likely fraudulent, and you want to go above and beyond for your due diligence. For us, when we get a contract that is vacant land, we will immediately send out a letter to the owner of record on the tax card and to that address for them that's on the tax card, not the vacant land, but whatever address is listed for them. And we'll send a letter just introducing ourselves. We've been asked to handle closing for the sale of your property at, blah, blah, blah. We are writing to confirm that you do intend to sell this vacant lot or whatever it is. Please, contact us and to confirm we can move forward with this transaction. And that's so far company-wide. We've already stopped probably 5 or 6.
Dang.
Yeah.
So that would be a good thing for us to do then before it ever gets to that point.
Oh yes. I mean, when you're anything especially vacant land, especially if it's unencumbered, no mortgages on it, do all the due diligence. And especially if you've not met these people in person and walked it with them. You know, it's not just lots, it's any kind of vacant land, period. Acreage, lot, whatever. If you've not met them in person and they cannot or will not meet you in person, that's a red flag. You need to do some more digging. And look at your tax card too, to see who it says the record owner is. I don't know if that comes up for you. When you all pull up CRS, so we don't have CRS, but when you all pull up CRS, is that pulling from the tax assessor's office? Okay. So generally, I guess if you get a lead, somebody calling, just verify.
I always try to cross-reference on Forewarn too, if it's the number that came in, or some people that be like, I only have WhatsApp. I'm like, that sucks. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm like, we can do a Zoom call if you'd like to, but I'm not gonna. I have to introduce myself and know that you're a valid human being for me to list this property.
Yeah, and unfortunately they've gotten very good at circumventing identification processes, and they've gotten really good at that piece of it, because that was what was stopping a lot of it. So now they either use their own notary, or they just have been able to get all the information on the current owner necessary to make you feel like that's really them. So, you know, especially if they say, we're gonna be a mail away and I'll use my own notary. Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yeah, that's a red flag. So be very, very, very aware of those. It's it really was started in Middle Tennessee, very prevalent, and it's now made its way out. So we've had a few instances here in East Tennessee too. All right, and the last one I had, I've been seeing a lot of this lately, and I really just feel like it's just kind of sloppy work. And again, it's not from anybody here, but it's also something to just double check. We're getting contracts that come through, and maybe the intention is to sell multiple lots or tracts, and the contract only lists one parcel ID. Well, sometimes all of those lots might be included in that parcel ID. It's great to go ahead and specify parcel ID, blah, blah, blah,
100%.
and all of lots 1, 2, 3, whatever. Sometimes, like the one I just had to correct last week, was they had listed it as no parcel ID, just a property address, but had told the client, well, you actually have 3 tracts. So, but those 3 tracts, the way that it had been subdivided, those 3 tracts actually included, they were also, I'll explain this without showing it to you, but they were also parts of different lots, and so they were essentially 3 different lots too. What we had conveyed in 2 tracts was 3 different lots. What they were intending to sell and buy was tract 1, tract 2, tract 3. So total, it was, 5 or 6 lots. But tract 1 and tract 2 had the same property, fell under the same property address. The 3rd tract was a totally different property address, totally different parcel ID.
Oh no.
And it was, so here were these 2 tracts, and kind of like went around like a horseshoe kind of. And the 3rd one was over here, and it was in the middle was somebody else's tract. So we're pretty good about trying to catch, like when we're looking at a search, and we're looking at the tax map, the GIS map, we will look at the adjoining property owners just to see if any of those are owned by the same person as the seller in our contract. So we know to question whether, hey, just making sure, do you intend to sell this as well, or is it just this one? But this particular one was, 2 tracts here, somebody else, a 3rd one over here on a different road. So we didn't pick it up. But so my point being, you cannot be too specific on your contracts. When you are putting the address in, I always recommend doing the property address, parcel ID. If it's, you know, a plat map and you know that you can get the lot number, you should be able to, including the lot number, as much identifying information as you can get. I had one person tell me a couple of weeks ago, she asked me some questions about one, and it was total of like 53 acres. That's what they were intending to sell. But that 53 acres actually was 2 parcels. One parcel was a certain amount of acreage. The other parcel was a certain amount of acreage. But on their listing that they sent me, they were advertising it as 53 acres, but they only put the one parcel ID, which is only 35 acres. So I said, well, you need to put the other parcel ID on there because what you're advertising is not correct, and also without the other parcel, this other one is now landlocked, which is
100%.
another problem. So for me, in my attorney head, that's false advertising. It's not correct. And so I was told, well, we can't put more than one parcel ID or something in the listing. I'm not really sure because I don't work in that part of it, but I would say whatever you need to do to make sure all of the information is there on your listing, because
You can always put C remarks and
they also
parcel and
put a
then
different
private.
property
remarks.
address just because they said people were going to the wrong road or way to get in or something. I don't
So
remember.
they put
So
that as
just
the
put
listing
as
address?
a 000 something property address, and I said, well, neither one of those parcel IDs have that address on the tax card, so that you can't just pick one. And then secondly, they were told, you know, by the seller that, oh, we have a deeded easement that goes through a different parcel to get to those two, because I said, well, right now it's technically landlocked. And so in front of that was actually a smaller parcel with a driveway, and you could see where it kind of ended, probably was just like a little or something, but, oh yeah, we've got a deeded easement. And I said, okay, I'm not seeing that in the deeds.
Yeah,
So now they got a big issue.
true.
Because that's apparently some sort of ex-family member that the driveway goes through his property, and the owner of the 2 large tracts had divorced his brother, and she got those 2 big tracts in the divorce. But now she has no way to access them.
At
Unless he
what
gives
point
her an
in
easement.
time, like let's say somebody was allowing the neighbor to use a certain piece of their land for a specific amount of time or forever, and then that person moves, at what point in time does that become an easement? Or
So they need to have
Encumbrance.
if there's no deeded easement and there's no easement agreement recorded, there will have to be one, because you can't sell and insure landlocked property.
right,
So there's no easement. So for our purposes, we're gonna have to have an easement agreement signed and recorded, showing how you have ingress and egress to the property. And then that easement will basically go on forever from that point.
okay.
This had already closed and all this came up after closing?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
This had just been listed, and I think she'd actually called me just a question about the taxes or something, and that's when I started pulling the tax records based off of the listing that she had sent me. It was not adding up, and so I kept digging a little deeper, and I was like, oof, got a problem. So with that said, you know, and I know you work with land a lot, so if somebody says, oh, I've got a deeded easement, let's trust but verify.
Yeah, I'm like, can you send me the deed?
Because if that doesn't exist, then you got a problem.
It's
That's got to
landlocked.
be resolved before you should even list it.
100%.
Yeah.
I can't believe she didn't ask that question before she listed it.
I I can't believe a lot of things I see come across my desk, if I'm being honest.
I do have a question. I was trying to get a piece of land under contract and she states there's no restrictions. There's no restrictions. I was like, okay, but it's zoned R1, so there is a restriction in the city, in Carter County and the city of Elizabethton for that parcel. So technically that's false advertising, correct? Because there isn't any
I mean, there's city
restrictions.
zoning.
But
There's
the
city
zoning, yeah,
There's city zoning, which you would include in the listing. She may be referring to there's no restrictions as far as no mobile homes or no chickens or no, that you can find in deeds.
okay.
Sometimes when property has been sold from way back, and it was like a big piece of land and then somebody's died and they're selling it off.
Mhm.
Like the situation you had with Debbie's parents with the restrictions and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That they will put in the deed that will then carry forward. She may be thinking of something like that.
Okay.
Or, requirements that the home has to be so big, stick built, blah, blah, blah. You can see that a lot in vacant land.
Okay.
But zoning, yeah, it needs to be listed as whatever zone it's in and refer to those zoning regulations.
Okay.
Good questions. Anything else? So all of this stuff has been coming up lately and some repeatedly. So I just thought for today it would be good to talk through some of these things that, when you come up and they don't come up often, but then it's kind of like, what do I do, or how do I handle it, or how do we address this on the front end so that we're not scrambling on the back end and everybody's mad and panic ensues and, all that fun stuff.
It's a good case study kind of thing. This happened, this can happen,
Mm-hmm.
which means it could happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. So, if anything like that, comes up, you have questions, y'all know you can call, email me, text, whatever. I'll be happy to help. So I always say, don't go to a hospital without a surgeon. Don't go to a title company without an attorney. Actually, that's JR's line, but I'm gonna claim it for
We
myself.
are one place. That's our this high.
So anyway, those are the 4 big ones that I had. If you guys have anything that you've seen lately or any questions.
What's your opinion on changing the ownership entity of an investment property? Because we're looking to refinance in the next couple months. It's currently in my husband's name, and we want to move it to an LLC or a trust or something like that. The lender said to maybe do it after it closes, but I feel like that would be more complicated.
Will you repeat her question?
Yeah. So she's asking if they currently have a property titled as husband and wife, and they want to refinance it and they want to change the title to an LLC or a trust. Should that be done before or after
The refinance.
the refinance closing? So here's the technicalities. If you do that afterwards, essentially what would happen is you close just as husband and wife, and that's how your deed already is. Then you do a quick claim deed after closing. They can call that note due and payable for a change of title
That's what I was thinking.
without
And the lender was
notification and
like-
approval.
And the lender was like, "We'll look into it." I was like, "I think you'll call my loan."
They can. Now, is that ever, does that happen very often? I've not seen it happen very often. As long as they're getting paid, they generally don't care.
It's a
But-
commercial loan too, though.
Yeah.
It'd be switching.
Would you switch from commercial to, so it would be commercial loan to commercial loan?
Yeah.
So I think that could come into effect too, cause I know commercial, I don't think they don't care as much, cause I have loans in commercial with my LLC, but if it's residential, they don't wanna do it in an LLC.
Okay.
So that's a discrepancy as well.
I mean, definitely say, hey, can I just see a copy of what the promissory note is gonna look like? And look for that, due on sale clause. Yeah, just to be sure. I mean, like he said, they're not investment properties, they're not watching that so closely. As long as they're getting paid, but they can do it.
Okay.
And they can do it instantly.
Rather not take that.
Good question. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you all.
That's helpful.